Hey everyone, Greg Luchak here. I'm at one of my project management or property management company's units that are under renovation, and they want me to replace a kitchen countertop that's damaged. So I'm going to turn the camera around. I'm going to give you a little bit of instruction on how we change out kitchen countertops. Just give me a second, I'll turn the camera around. Just going to quickly put on display the main tools you're going to need to do this job. You're going to need a drill, skill saw, a belt sander, a jigsaw router, the tape measure, pencil, hammer, knife, and a 1-inch drill bit. And those are the main tools I use to change out a countertop. Okay, here we are. I'm walking into the kitchen. I've already pulled the drawers out. I'm just going to pan back here. This is the kitchen counter that we have to exchange or remove. And the reason why is there's some burn marks on it, and they want to change it out so it's nice and fresh for the new tenant that'll be coming in. So the first thing we're going to do is disconnect everything. I'll step back here. Now I've already gone ahead and I've loosened off the because these are the plumbing, which is only hand tight, and I've disconnected the water lines. So that's simple enough. And then what we do is we remove the tap. The tap is only held on by these nuts that are these big plastic nuts. So you just unscrew those from here, and then you remove the tap. And then you unscrew the actual sink, which is held down to the countertop with these little brackets. And there's about a half a dozen of those. So you unscrew those and you remove the sink. So there you have it. The sink is out. We'll put that down. Step back, and then we're gonna. Now this particular counter, for whatever reason, typically it's screwed to the cabinetry. For whatever reason, they nailed it down. So I've already pried it off. So basically you remove the counter, you either unscrew it. In this case there were 1x2s that were nailed and glued on. So we basically remove the countertop. So just give me a second while I actually remove the countertop. Okay, countertop has been removed. Oh, and one of the other things I did is I went and I cut all the caulking first with an X-Acto knife, both a knife, so that it's easy to remove without damaging the wall. And there it is. So we're going to cut the new countertop to the same length, and then we're going to cut out the sink, and then we're going to reinstall it. Okay, so here I've put the countertop. The new countertop is resting on top of the cabinetry, and I've taken a measurement of the old countertop, which is 73 inches. And you always want to measure twice and cut once, right? So I've measured 73 inches. Here we are. Right, so I'm going to mark that. I've already marked it in a couple of spots. And what you want to do is we have to glue on a new end, a finished edge on this edge here that's exposed. And the edge that's along the wall, that's the edge we're going to cut. We're going to leave the factory edge so that we can have a nice tight finished edge. It'll be a nice finished edge when we're done because it's a factory finished edge. We're going to cut this and put it against the wall. So then the cut edge that we're going to do on site, sometimes it's not always perfect. So if you this edge, if there's a little wobble in it, or it's going to be hidden with caulking if that happens. And we try not to do that. But this gives us the opportunity if we had to hide a slightly crooked line. And sometimes the wall itself is not square. We'll find that out. I'm going to cut it square at 90 degrees. I've got my big square here, so we're going to make sure that we cut our line square, but the wall might not be square. So I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to cut that with my skill saw. Remember saying the wall isn't quite square. It's touching this corner, so we're just going to scribe it that back here. I'm just going to scribe it a little. And we're going to, okay, as you can see, I've set up my skill saw. And it's hard for me to film this and do it at the same time, so I'm just going to show you the process. But basically I'm going to use my skill saw and cut this off a little bit, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to belt sand the end of it, just to make sure that edge is nice and clean. Okay, now I've set up my belt sander. You can see here, and I'm going to take my belt sander and I'm just going to sand this edge so it's nice and clean. You can see it, there's a bit of a pencil line there still. I'm going to sand to the pencil line. And then we're going to dry fit the counter again. Okay, now we'll just snug the countertop back into place here. Make sure it's where it's supposed to be. Still a little bit off, but I think we need to, something is a little crooked here. There we go. So we're a little closer. We can cock that edge out. Actually, the back of the countertop, as we can see, there's an issue here as well. There was a lot of caulking on the old one. I cut it all off. That's why you can see some unpainted wall surface, because I cut all the old caulking off. And the old countertop, the backsplash, the rolled backsplash here, was 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch higher than this one. So there's not much we can do about that. That's a lot to scribe. You see here, and somebody's ran some electrical, so I can't really cut. Sometimes we can cheat and cut the wall, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to scribe the back of the countertop, try and get a little closer. Put this back in, nice and tight. And you can see where we try and keep an equal distance here and an equal distance here, and then we're going to take our pencil and we're going to scribe so you can see the pencil line. Now we can take our saw. Sorry, that was a little fast. Take our saw and we're going to cut, and then we're going to belt sand that. That should snug us up to the wall. Now I pulled the countertop back and I've set my skill saw back up. So you have to realize that I'm going to cut with my skill saw, just like you see in here, and it takes a steady hand, and you'll have to go slowly as you're cutting, and you scribe that little part of the countertop out. Okay, now I've scribed it with the skill saw. Now I'm just going to dry fit it back here, and I've set up my belt sander. We'll get ourselves back on the, there we go. Back in the spot. So now you can see that gap is really reduced quite a bit. We still have a little bit right there. We're going to belt sand this off here. Pencil somewhere. We'll belt sand this little bit of an edge off here, and then we're going to screw the. Well, we're going to do the finished end over here. And basically, what we're going to do is we're going to nail this little filler piece in, so that we can then turn around and we have their iron-on finished ends for the laminate. We'll iron on those, and then we'll trim it with the router. So I'll pause there and do some belt sanding. Okay, now you can see I've started to nail on our filler piece so that we can glue on our edging. Okay, our filler piece is glued on. I'm just going to push the counter back into place here. All into place, and then we have our iron-on finished piece of laminate. These things come with, they're pre-glued, and you basically heat them up and iron them on, and then let them dry or let them set. It doesn't take too long. So it'll go on like that. And then we'll trim it with a router. I'm going to start to iron on the finished end. Now it gets pretty hot, so just watch your fingers when you're doing this kind of stuff. And it takes a few minutes. You gotta heat it up pretty good. And you just keep going back and forth with your iron. Make sure it's sticking. Make sure it's in the right position. It's up a little bit here, so it's still wet. So I'm going to push it down just a little bit. There we go. Go back and keep ironing. Want to make sure you heat the glue up really good. Contact cement, that's what's on the back of this. Doesn't take very long to set up once you start letting it dry. That's on there, so we're going to let that dry. Unplug the iron. There you have it. That's glued on. And, we'll give it 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll trim it off with the router. Okay, I'm setting up my router. So this is what the router looks like. Okay, and we have a special bit on here that's got a little wheel. And basically it won't allow you to trim past the edge. So it's just going to take this edge off, and you have to be careful not to bend your router the wrong way. You want to try and keep it straight. You can even keep it just a little bit above the countertop, and you can go back and scrape it down with a sharp knife, like a sharp Ulfa X-Acto knife, or you can use a file and clean that edge up after. Because sometimes if you over router it or you overcut it, then you've got to go back and try and fix the edge. There's ways to fix the edge, but it's tricky. So I'll stop here. Just checking. We might be able to start routering actually. So I'll set this router up, and I'll see. We can't router the edge. Maybe we can put the camera back on so you can see me doing it. I'll back up here. I think that gives you a good perspective right there. Here we go. Move this a little bit. Always keep your cords, try and keep them out of the way so you don't nick them or anything. Does see how it trims the edge. Now I'm going to go back and we'll just try to stay just a little bit above the edge. Knife blade, or if you're using a file, on a 45-degree angle, so you're just cleaning the edge up a little bit. And there you have it, nice finished edge. Okay, we're going to screw the countertop on. So you can see you want to try and get it into the best position. See, it's moving there. So it's tight here. So I'm going to take a screw and I'm going to screw this here up into the countertop. You want to make sure that your screws aren't too long. In this case I'm using 1.25 inches, but basically you want to screw the 4 corners. You're going to, under here, in the middle, under here, under here, under here, under here. Or you can go in line with the cabinets, but 6 screws should hold this down sufficiently. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so now the countertop is all screwed down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut out our sink. And what we'll do is we're going to find we have to line up with the old plumbing. What we'll do is we'll measure the old countertop. We'll measure this hole out so that we match the sink, and we'll double check it with the plumbing and we'll cut that hole out. There's the plumbing there that we have to line up with. So I'll go get the sink and we'll do that. Now, normally in a new sink installation you would have a template that comes with the sink. So we're reinstalling the existing sink. So as you can see, typically what we want to do is we're going to line it up with the centers. I'm just double checking back here. That's pretty close. What I want to do is take my tape measure, which is hiding. I'll go get my tape measure. There it is there, and a pencil. And what I want to do is measure how far off the wall the center of the plumbing is. So we'll do that. So you can see where I'm measuring there. So it's about 13.5 off the wall to the center of the sink. Well, we're pretty close there. Okay. Yes, we're bang on. So that's where the sink is going there. And I could double check here where we are 9 3/4 off that cabinet, which is right about there. We're very close. But I'm going to double check the measurements of my hole on the old one, where we are 21 5/8 and 51.5. 21 5/8. You can see where I'm measuring. We're pretty close. 51.5. We're very close. So I'm gonna, now what I do is I mark the outside with a pencil. And I know my lines. I think that's where it's going to sink, and I know that when I look here, I come across where we're here. If I do the same thing here, we're here. We're here. I go here and I look. So I'm here. And I do the same thing on the back. And then I can remove my sink and I can do where my cut lines are going to be. So let's just pick the sink up. Sink down. Now I've got my square here. Bring my square over, and I can do this. I can line up my lines. Like that, and then we're going to, and I'll put the camera so that you can see it. Can you see there? Well, hopefully you can see that. I'm going to mark my lines. We are 3 3/4. That's pretty good because typically these lines are about 3.5 inches off the face. So here we go. Know that this is square, so we'll do this. Go to that line, roughly there. And I know that my corners are round, so I've marked. The inside line is my cut line, and what I'm going to do is we're going to just round. Just like the sink is, we will round these out. Round these corners out. And I'm going to put the sink back and I'm going to mark for the faucet holes. Okay, we're marking for the faucet hole, so I'm making sure that my sink goes right back in the same spot I had it when I drew with my pencil. And I'm going to mark out for the faucets. So there you can, hopefully you can see the template. And then we're going to drill some pilot holes, and then we're going to take out the jigsaw and we're going to cut out the sink. Okay, as you can see, I went ahead and I drilled out some holes. I drilled out the 3 holes for the faucet. And I've drilled, because your router typically can't go all the way around without having to have a pilot hole. So I've drilled 3 pilot holes so I can take my, not my router, my jigsaw and cut out the hole. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. Okay, I've set up my jigsaw, put it in the pilot hole, and we're going to turn it on here and we're going to start cutting. I'm going to stop there for a sec, because what I do here in the last 3 or 4 inches, I reach up underneath with my hand and I hold the piece from underneath, finish cutting, and let my hand hold it so it doesn't fall. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I can't hold the camera at the same time, so we'll just pause it and I'll do that. And there's the piece. We finished the cut and the sink is cut out. So I'll go ahead and we're going to clean all that up, and we're going to dry fit the sink to see how it fits in. Okay, we've put in the sink. It's all lined up, looks good. What I did beforehand, I went around and I erased with with a little bit of water in my sanding sponge all the pencil marks, so we don't have to clean those up after. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to hook up our sink. We're going to put all our brackets back on. These are the little brackets. They clip on, there's little hooks you clip on, and you just screw them up to snug the sink back down nice and tight. And we'll hook our top back up. Our top is right here. You simply put it in the hole, there we go. It's lined up. We go back underneath and we install our nuts back onto the water lines and hook the water lines up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're almost done. Okay. So there you go. You can have a look-see. I'm going to reach up and I'm going to put the nut on. Let's put that on so we can snug up the faucet. Now you may want to go up above and just check to see that it's straight after you've snugged it up. Put the other nut on. And this is the same way I uninstalled. We're doing everything when you're uninstalling, you're doing what I'm doing now in reverse, obviously. I'm snugging this up with my hand as tight as I can. Okay, and then the water lines just hook back up. I'll get a wrench and tighten these, but for now I'll just do them hand tight. Put this one on. Okay, they're hand tight. You want to tighten those with a pair of pliers. And then these have little hooks that you turn around and hook them up on the sink. There you go. See if I can't snug it up by hand first. Get the next one. It's towards the front corner here. Put that one on. And this one here. There's a half a dozen of these around the underside of the sink. It's a little tricky to get the ones in front. Okay, the sink is attached, the water lines are attached. Now we just have to hook up our drain lines. We just come up here and you put these on hand tight. Just make sure it doesn't cross thread. They have a tendency to cross thread. It can be a little finicky. Okay, there's a little washer in here, make sure that's in there. Okay, and they're just good and hand tight snug. And there you go. Turn our tops back on. See? Turn the valves back on the tops. Taps running. Our P-trap is leaking a little bit right here. Sometimes this loosens up. This has to be snugged up again. Okay, everything's hooked up. The only thing we have left to do now is to caulk. Caulk around these edges. Caulk that out. And then the painters are going to come in because there's going to have to be a little bit of a paint touch up. This countertop isn't exactly the same size as the old one. So there we go. It's caulked. Going all around the perimeter with caulking. The painters will still have to touch it up because there's a few spots there. But there you have it.